Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. In training camp on Wednesday, where at Alabama, we had something that we have not seen since the fall of what? 2006? That is right. For the first time since the fall 2006, Alabama has somebody other than Nick Saban leading them out of the tunnel and onto the practice field. And that person, of course, is Kalen Deboer. And so I want to go ahead and get into just some stuff that happened at Alabama. There wasn't anything major. There's no quarterback controversy. There's no whatever. But at the same time, like, why it's actually very interesting to me is because basically it's a new era at Alabama. And what makes it especially interesting is that essentially everything that Nick Saban did at Alabama, basically Kalen Deboer is doing the exact opposite. And it's not intentional. It's not to prove that what Saban was doing was wrong or anything like that. But it is certainly a new era. And we saw it on Wednesday afternoon when camp opened. Saban used to have practice in the afternoons. Kalen Deboer, they were out on the field ready to go at like 9:15 local time. There was never much music or upbeat or liveliness to a Saban practice other than those pads popping. At Alabama practice, the media will tell you that the music was blaring and that the energy was high from that. Oh, by the way, speaking of the media, you know, I have buddies that cover that team. And Nick Saban, and this is not a criticism of him, but Nick Saban, pretty much, he was the only voice that ever came out of that building. I believe the media had availability with assistant coaches one time in the preseason and then one mandated period in the postseason. And every other podium appearance was by Nick Saban. Well, since Kalen Deboer has gotten there, guess what? Alabama has made its assistant coaches available at spring practice. They'll be available at fall camp. They're doing radio appearances. And so, like I said, it is a whole new world at Alabama. And I'll take it a step further. I think it's a whole new world. I think it's a fresh new world. I think it's good for the players, for the fans, for the media who covers that team. And I think this little peek behind the curtain is proof to me, and maybe I'm overreacting, but I think it's proof to me that this Alabama thing is going to go really well, the transition from Nick Saban to Kalen Deboer. And I think Alabama is going to surprise some people with how good they are this year. Now, before we get into it, let me do the backtrack here. When I credit Kalen Deboer, when I say that I love seeing the energy out of camp from him, his team, whatever, let's be abundantly clear. That is not Torres taking a shot at Nick Saban. Nick Saban is the GOAT. Nick Saban is the greatest I've seen. I think we would mostly agree Nick Saban is the greatest any of us have ever seen. Maybe some of you are old enough to remember Bear Bryant. If you are, I apologize. I'm not. But Saban was the greatest that I have ever seen and probably the greatest that I will ever see. At the same time, what I will also say is a couple things are undeniable. And by the way, when I say Saban's the greatest, I want to make that clear that when I credit Kalen Deboer, if he's doing things different, it doesn't mean that that Nick Saban was doing things wrong. But a few things are true. One, I do think as time went on, it became harder and harder for Nick Saban to maintain the standard, specifically kind of with the coaching staff he was able to put together. He admitted it kind of after the fact, like it was really hard for me to get and retain elite assistants because everybody wanted to know, how long are you going to be there for? I don't want to move my family to Tuscaloosa and then 6 months later you retire. But two, even some of the stuff that Deboer is doing, I think has brought a little bit of energy into that building. Now, by the way, again, not that what Saban did was wrong, but there are reasons that Deboer does things the way that he does. I love being in the media, allowing assistant coaches to take that podium. What that does is it allows your assistants to get reps. Listen, love Saban, but some of his assistant coaches, you saw them get out in front of the media the first time or two after they had been in that bubble. Did not go well. Ask Jeremy Pruitt. Ask Will Muschamp. Kind of from that, the Bill Belichick tree, whatever. So there's that element of it. Kalen Deboer now has more free time to focus on other things. But what I will say, seeing that team with that new coaching staff, I think this team is going to surprise some people. Because one, let's credit Nick Saban. He left a lot of talent in that building. And two, I just think because there is no Nick Saban, people are maybe underestimating a little bit what Kalen Deboer is actually capable of. Because when I think about Kalen Deboer, a few things stand out. One, again, not who's right, not who's wrong. But one thing that is indisputable is this. Kalen Deboer is coming off a 14-1 season where his Washington Huskies played for the national championship. You know that. What stands out to me, though, is this, is that Kalen Deboer did that with a team that, with due respect, was not as talented as the team that he is going to field in Tuscaloosa this year. I'm sorry, it's the truth. Kalen Deboer is coming off a 14-1 season in which he beat Oregon twice, in which he beat Texas, in which he beat Utah, always a tough team to play, in which they beat whoever, fill in the blank, USC with the reigning Heisman Trophy winner Caleb Williams. And the talent that he's going to have at his disposal this year is the best talent that he's ever had. Alabama has arguably the best offensive line in all of college football. The defense obviously has dudes everywhere. I know that Nick Saban's a little bit worried about the secondary, but there's talent across the board there. And even Jalen Milroe, the quarterback who everybody's worried about, I get it. But at the same time, remember this. With due respect, what was Michael Penix before Kalen Deboer got his hands on him? Michael Penix was really good at Indiana when Kalen Deboer was his offensive coordinator. Then Deboer leaves for Fresno State, and Michael Penix really struggled after that. Now, he had some injuries, but he didn't become Michael freaking Penix, the dude that we knew, until Kalen Deboer got him. And so I just bring it up because look at this Alabama roster. Look at the coaching staff that they have, probably top to bottom better than last year's. No disrespect, it's the truth. Nick Saban's the GOAT, but some of those assistants he had, I don't know. But at the same time, you look at everything, all the pieces, I think this team has a chance to be really good. And I find it interesting because I get that Kalen Deboer is coming to the SEC for the first time. I'm not saying that it's going to be a cakewalk. But what I found interesting over the last couple weeks is this. Whenever I see people talking about Alabama, it seems to me that everybody is assuming a worst-case scenario. Well, Georgia's coming in as a road favorite. That's a loss. Well, they got to go to LSU. Well, they got to go to Tennessee. Well, they got to go to Oklahoma. Well, they got to go to Wisconsin in the out-of-conference. And I think even the naysayers, to use an Alabama term, don't believe that Alabama is going to lose all those games. But I think people are going to lose some. But I believe the opposite is, why are we defaulting to the worst-case scenario when there's actually proof that this team is probably going to be a little bit better than people think? First of all, Georgia does come into town, but guess what? It's early in the season. That game's at home. If you're going to play Georgia, you want them at home. And you want them under the lights in Bryant-Denny Stadium, which is exactly what's going to happen. All those road games, by the way, at LSU, at Tennessee, at Oklahoma, even at Wisconsin. You know what all those teams have in common? All those teams are breaking in a brand new quarterback. And so you look at LSU, you think LSU doesn't have its own problems right now? I love Brian Kelly. I'm a Brian Kelly believer. But they had one of the worst defenses in all of college football last year, and now they're also replacing a Heisman Trophy winner. And I know they have a new defensive coordinator, but let's see how much better they get. Tennessee, really good last year, but is Nico really that dude? Oklahoma, really good, but this is year one in the SEC. They might be beat up by the time they play Alabama late in the year. So I could go on and on. But this is a team that I believe is going to overachieve. But maybe even more importantly than that, I just kind of believe that this new energy is kind of a metaphor for what we are seeing at Alabama. New energy, new coaching staff, new style of play. Again, different media availability, different practice schedule. But if you're an Alabama fan, you have to be fired up because this Kalen Deboer era is underway. Practice has started, and I cannot wait to see what this team looks like going forward.